Welcome to the Lifehack Summit. Today, I'm interviewing our headliner, Gretchen Rubin. Gretchen is the author of several books, including the New York Times bestsellers Better Than Before, The Happiness Project, and Happier at Home. She has an enormous readership, both in print and online, and her books have actually sold more than 3 million copies worldwide, and they've been translated into more than 30 languages. So that's what she does now, and she lives in New York City with her husband and 2 daughters. Welcome, Gretchen.
Oh, I'm so happy to be talking to you.
So Gretchen, just to kick off the conversation, the theme for this year's summit is how to create a sane life in an insane world. How do you create that?
Well, I think there's 2 things that you can think about to focus on as you're starting about creating the sanity for yourself. One is relationships. I mean, one thing that ancient philosophers and contemporary scientists agree about is that to be happy, we need to have strong relationships with other people. So if you're feeling like, everything's kind of careening out of control, think about, well, how can you deepen your existing relationships or broaden your relationships? And that's probably something that's really going to make you feel happier. And the other thing to think about is your own body. Our physical experience always colors our emotional experience. And if you're feeling overwhelmed by the world, are you staying up too late and constantly checking news feeds? Are you not exercising because you're glued to the TV set? Are you not eating properly? Are you feeling overtaxed and so you're reaching for vending machine foods instead of like eating healthy snacks, and then you feel gross, and then you feel guilty, and then you feel, so thinking about your relationships with other people, and also thinking about like how can you maintain sort of your own body, your energy, and your sense of well-being. Those are good places to start if you're thinking about, okay, how do I make myself feel more sane? Now, for me personally, I'm a huge reader. Reading is my cubicle in my treehouse. It's what I do for fun. It's what I do for work. I'm always trying to make time to read. And what I realize is that a lot of times when I start getting that feeling of like, I'm so overwhelmed, I don't know what to do, I have no time for anything, like I'm overtaxed, I deserve this, I need to give myself a treat. A lot of times it's because I haven't made time to read, and that's what I need to feel like myself. So I'm like, okay, you know what, I need to take an hour and a half today, just sit here, read a book, whatever book it is, and that is going to help me feel like back to my core self.
And you mentioned the 4 tendencies, which I absolutely want to get into. Can you go over that framework for anyone who hasn't read your books?
Yeah, so the 4 tendencies, now I sort of came upon the 4 tendencies. I feel like I didn't even invent it. I discovered it in the world when I was writing my book, Better Than Before, which is all about how we change habits. It's all about all the 21 ways you can make or break habits. But what I noticed as I was writing this book is that it's just like what we were just talking about with the calendar. Sometimes some things would work really well for some people, but not work at all for others. Or some people would say certain things, but then like I'd be like, I don't feel that way. I don't know what you're talking about. So what I figured out is that people fall into 4 categories: upholders, questioners, obligers, and rebels, in the way that they respond to expectations, which sounds very boring, but turns out to be very significant. So we all face expectations: outer expectations, like a work deadline or request from a friend, and inner expectations, like our own desire to keep a New Year's resolution. So depending on how you respond to outer and inner expectations, you're either an upholder, a questioner, an obliger, a rebel. Now, I have a quiz on my site, and you can go to it at GretchenRubin.com, and it's like 1.3 million people have taken this quiz. It's quick, it's free, but most people, I'll give a brief description right now, and most people can tell what they are right away. So upholders readily meet outer and inner expectation. They meet the work deadline, they keep the New Year's resolution without much fuss. Then they want to know what other people expect from them, but what they expect from themselves is just as important. Then there are questioners. Questioners question all expectations. They'll do it if they think it makes sense. So they're always focused on justification, efficiency. They tend to dislike anything arbitrary. So in a way, they're making everything an inner expectation, because it's like if it meets their standard and they think it makes sense, they'll do it. If they don't think it makes sense, they will resist. Then there are obligers. Obligers readily meet outer expectations, but they struggle to meet inner expectations. Like a friend of mine who said, I don't understand. When I was in high school, I was on the track team and I never missed track practice. So why can't I go running now? Well, when she had a team and a coach waiting for her, she had no trouble showing up. But when she was trying to go on her own, she struggled. And then finally, rebels. Rebels resist all expectations, outer and inner alike. They want to do what they want to do in their own way, in their own time. They can do anything they want to do, but if you ask or tell them to do something, they're very likely to resist.
So, okay, that's how you can use your tendency to make you a little bit more productive. But really your main focus, like on your podcast and in many of your books, is how can you become happier, right?
Yeah.
Because I think actually productivity is just a vehicle to become happier and more fulfilled anyway.
Absolutely. That's why you do it. Yeah.
Exactly. I mean, can you touch on that a little bit and how maybe a couple of the tendencies or being aware of your tendency can make you happier?
Well, I mean, I think that at the center, I think, of thinking about happiness is this idea that we all have to decide for ourselves what is part of a happy life. We can build a happy life only on the foundation of our own nature, our own values, our own temperament, our own interests. And so what would make me happier is not necessarily going to be the things that would make you happier. And in all different kinds of ways. You love music, I don't care about music. You love food, I don't really care about food. I like having a dog, you like having a cat. I like getting up early, you like getting up late. I'm an upholder, you're an obliger. Like, there's so many things that are different of us. So I think the first thing to do is to say to yourself, well, what kind of person am I? And not to feel, I think a lot of times we're sort of told, like, this is the way to be happy. So
Right.
you need to get up early, exercise first thing, eat lots of fruits and vegetables, read for an hour, turn off the TV, whatever it might be. There's a million things that sort of experts tell us to do.
Yeah.
Really, we all have to figure it out for ourselves. There's a lot of ways to create a happier life. And what each of us has to do is to really say, I mean, I have 12 personal commandments, which are like my big overarching things to follow. And my first one is to be Gretchen. And, everybody has to substitute their own name. But be Gretchen is this idea that, like, how can I be more myself? How can I have a life that reflects what I care about, not to try to fit myself into somebody else's mold. What worked really
Right.
well for my sister-in-law, or what really, worked for Steve Jobs. It's like, well, what's true for me? I think that's the most important thing.
I love that. I absolutely love that idea also of having a list of personal commandments that
Yeah.
then you have told yourself to follow. Can you just share a couple more of those? I'm personally very curious.
Oh, yeah. Well, this is a really fun exercise. I recommend it to everybody. We've talked about it on the Happier podcast, Elizabeth and I, because it's a great way to really distill down what you believe in. And it took me months to come up with mine. So my first one is be Gretchen. Another one is do it now. What I've realized is that if something's important to me, now is always the best time to begin.
Hmm.
Another one is to spend out. I thought this was really idiosyncratic to me, but a lot of people, it turns out, have this, which is I kind of hoard things. Like, if I buy brand new white t-shirts, I kind of don't wear them. Or if I have like beautiful perfume, I kind of don't want to use it. Or if I have really nice office supplies, I kind of save them. So I have to remind myself, like, put things to use, spend out. Another one is there's only love, meaning like, if I am dealing with somebody who's close to me who's being difficult, I try to just be like, there's only love. There's only love. A friend of mine had a very difficult boss, and that was the lesson I learned from her. Another one, energy, is just like something that my father always says, and just remembering energy is very helpful. Another one, my spiritual master is Saint Therese of Lisieux, even though I'm not even Catholic, and she has a line where she says, "When one loves, one does not calculate." So one of my commandments is no calculation, to remind myself, like, I don't want to be a bean counter. I don't always want to be like trading. I want to just do the right thing and do the loving thing, because that's the kind of person that I want to be. So that's some of the personal commandments. Yeah.
I love that. And in particular, I think a lot of people might make a list where it's like, I command myself to work out every day or eat this certain kind of food. But what I love about what you've done is there are actual guidelines. So in any situation, you can ask yourself, am I fulfilling on each of my commandments in this situation, rather than sort of creating an ideal Gretchen that's based on actually other people's ideals for themselves. It really
Yes.
feels like it's your ideal for you.
Yes. Well, and it's a really interesting process, because when you see, because many people have sent me their lists. And so, and it's funny how just reading someone's list, you get a real sense of who they are. And what's funny is sometimes people have things that are the opposite. Like, someone's list might have start, and someone else's might be wait, or, somebody else might be one. There was one year where my sister and I each picked a theme for the year, and my sister picked smaller and I picked bigger. And those are both great. Those are both great. One of my favorites, and this is a personal commitment that's really helpful if you're really struggling with a big decision. When you're like, I don't know, should I move or should I stay? Should I go back to graduate school? Should I get a dog? Should I have a baby? All these things. A really good question, a great personal commandment, is to choose the bigger life. Because for each of us, the bigger life is different. For one person, a bigger life is getting a dog, and for one person, a bigger life is not getting a dog. But
Right.
sometimes, like, I did this when we were deciding whether to get a dog, and I felt like my pros and cons list was exactly even, and I could not decide. But then when I thought, well, what is the bigger life for me and my family? It was clear. 100% the bigger life was getting a dog. So we got a dog, and we're so happy. Sometimes sometimes the way that you frame things, or the way that you kind of approach them in your mind, can really help you get clarity. And I think the personal commandments really do help with that.
And one other thing that I wanted to make sure we talked about as a new topic really is this idea of emotions versus actions, because this is a tension I feel that we are always fighting against, is what do I feel like doing versus what should I actually do, or what will I actually do? And you talk a little bit about how behavior can actually influence emotions, which I think is really powerful. Can you explain what that means?
Right. Well, so there's sort of two things. First of all, one of the things that exactly the point that you're making is why habit is so freeing. Because with habit, it's not like I'm not waiting. Like, do I feel like going to yoga class? It's like I just go to yoga class every day at 8 a.m. Like I'm there before I'm even aware of it. And so habit takes us out of using our willpower, making decisions, feeling a certain way. It just happens on automatic pilot. And that's great. It can be tremendously freeing. Like I get up every day at 6 a.m. Every night I'm not like, what time should I wake up tomorrow? Oh, this, that, should I have a snooze alarm? It's like, I get up at 6 a.m. every day. Like that's just done. And then the more you stick with the habit, then the easier it is to follow through with it. So it gets easier and easier and easier as that automatic pilot kicks in. But you're also talking about another phenomenon, which is the idea that actions inspire feeling. So we often believe that we act because of the way we feel. So I'm really angry, so I'm going to yell and I'm going to slam the door because I'm angry. But research shows that it almost is the opposite way. Like the brain looks around and is like, wow, people are yelling here. There's doors slamming. I guess you feel really angry. And then it amplifies those feelings. And the way we can take advantage of this is that by acting the way we wish we felt. So if I feel shy, I can act outgoing. If I'm feeling kind of listless and logy, I can act with energy. I can move more quickly. I can speak more rapidly. I can, just move more. If I feel angry at someone, I can act in a generous, considerate, thoughtful way. And that is going to inspire those feelings in me. Because it's very difficult to control our emotions, but it's much easier to control our outward actions. And so a lot of times by changing actions, then we do have an effect on our emotions.
Awesome. Well, Gretchen, thank you so much for being here today.
Thank you. So happy to talk to you.